The laughter echoed through the obsidian chamber, like a storm, breaking across dead mountains. Every sound reverberated off the metallic walls, sharp and cruel, feeding the arrogance of those seated on the towering thrones encircling the arena. The Galactic Dominion's High Council had gathered to witness the surrender of the last human, envoying a broken remnant of a defeated species. At least that was what they believed. The figure standing, alone at the center of the chamber, did not fit their idea of a warrior. He was old, too old for a soldier's burden. His back, though straight, carried the weight of years. And the faded military coat he wore was marked by burns, tears, and insignia long obsolete. His hair was gray, cut short, and his face was a map of scars, each one a story from a war no alien cared to remember. Yet his eyes were alive. They did not tremble before the gathered warlords. They studied the room as though he were the judge and they the condemned. The supreme executor of the Dominion rose from its throne, a towering creature of bone and armor, its voice like crushed gravel. "This is your strongest?" it demanded, the translation devices echoing the contempt in every syllable. "This frail, withered thing represents the fury of Earth?" The council erupted into laughter, a symphony of mockery. Metallic jaws opened and closed in amusement. Tentacles trembled with derision. A few even stood, pointing their weapons as if daring him to speak. The old man did not move. His gloved hand rested gently on the hilt of his cane. Not a weapon, but an anchor, a reminder that his war had not ended with peace, only with waiting. "You slaughtered our fleets," one alien jeered. "You begged for mercy, and now you send us this relic? Tell us, human, are you here to surrender your dying kind?" He finally looked up, and the faintest smile crept across his face. It was not defiant. It was patient. "No," he said, his voice quiet but steady, cutting through the laughter like a blade through silk. "I'm not here to surrender." The words silenced the room for a breath, a heartbeat of confusion before the mockery resumed louder than before. Yet the Supreme Executor did not laugh. It studied him with suspicion. "Then why are you here?" The man took a slow breath, as though tasting the air of an empire that believed itself eternal. "Because," he said, "someone has to deliver the message." The executor's mandibles twitched. "Message? What message?" The human raised his head fully now. The light from the chamber's crimson torches caught the silver in his eyes, making them gleam like iron beneath flame. "You asked if I'm our strongest," he said softly. "I'm not. I'm only the warning." The laughter faltered again, replaced this time by an unease that no one could name. The Dominion prided itself on recognizing strength in all forms. Yet there was something in his tone, a gravity that bent the air around him. He was not threatening them. He was declaring inevitability. The executor leaned forward. "A warning from a dead race?" The soldier's eyes did not waver. "From one that remembers." The chamber dimmed as holographic screens ignited behind him, flickering to life with images of Earth before the invasion, oceans shimmering under sunlight, children laughing beneath skies free of war. Then the images changed. Cities burning, craters where homes once stood, soldiers falling one by one under alien fire. The council watched, intrigued at first, then uncomfortable. The old man's voice did not rise. It sank lower, each word carrying weight. "You came to our world thinking we were easy to break. You mistook mercy for fear. You mistook silence for surrender." One of the warlords struck the floor with its weapon, sparks scattering. "Enough sentiment. What does this serve?" He turned his gaze upon it, and for a moment the warlord felt small. "Perspective," the man said simply. "Because the ones who survived, the ones you left behind, they've stopped asking for mercy." The executor's eyes narrowed. "You expect us to believe humanity can still fight? Your armies are gone. Your world is ash." The soldier's lips curved, not in joy but in grim amusement. "Ash can burn again," he murmured. For a long moment no one spoke. The quiet was heavy, uneasy, and somewhere deep within the structure, a distant alarm began to pulse. The council turned toward the screens as data cascaded across them. Unknown. Energy signatures. Movement from beyond the Dominion's patrol zones. The executor barked orders, its voice distorted with sudden tension. "What is this intrusion?" The soldier said nothing. He simply stood there, still and calm, while the air filled with the cold hum of panic. "Explain this," the executor demanded. He met its gaze one last time. "That," he said, "is the sound of your empire learning what happens when humanity stops being afraid." He turned his eyes upward, toward the ceiling where the faint hum of distant engines could almost be felt, through the stone. You thought I was here to fight you. I'm not. I came so you'd know what's coming. For the first time, the laughter did not return. Every creature in the chamber could feel something shifting, something vast and invisible closing in. The old man's expression softened, almost sorrowful. You called us weak, he whispered. But weakness is what taught us to endure. He stepped back into the light, his shadow stretching long across the marble floor. Around him, the alarms grew louder. Systems flickering in confusion, signals jamming across sectors. And as the Supreme Executor opened its mouth to demand answers, the old soldier spoke once more, almost tenderly. I told you, he said. I'm only the warning. The lights cut to black. The chamber erupted into motion the moment the lights returned. No longer red, but flashing white with emergency signals. Council members shouted over one another as holographic displays multiplied, each showing fragmented reports of Dominion space. Fleets were moving where none should exist. Communications blinked in and out, scrambled by unknown interference. At the center of the chaos stood the old human soldier, motionless, as if the storm around him were nothing more than background noise. The Supreme Executor slammed a clawed limb into its console, silencing the chamber through sheer authority. Detain him, it ordered, now. Guards surged forward, weapons humming with lethal charge. The soldier did not resist when they seized his arms. His bones creaked beneath armored grips, and a sharp breath escaped him. But his eyes never left the data flooding the air. He had seen this moment in simulations and sleepless nights. Humanity's survival hinged not on strength, but timing. You planned this deception, the executor snarled, mandibles trembling. You used our arrogance against us. The soldier nodded once. You didn't need help, he replied. You did that on your own. One screen stabilized, revealing a Dominion carrier drifting lifelessly in space. Its escorts floated nearby, weapons powered down, crews broadcasting distress signals. Another display showed supply convoys vanishing from hyperspace routes, not destroyed but disabled with surgical precision. The Council watched in disbelief as years of military doctrine unraveled in minutes. They were never supposed to breach those sectors, a warlord hissed. Our shields are impenetrable. Against force, the soldier said quietly. Not against patience. The executor stepped closer, towering over him. You are one man. You cannot command fleets from this room. I don't have to, he answered. They already know what to do. A sharp crack split the air as a guard struck him across the ribs, sending him to one knee. Pain flared white-hot, but he welcomed it. Pain meant he was still alive, still useful. He coughed, tasting blood, and smiled despite himself. You see, he continued, voice rough but steady. Humans learned long ago that we don't win by overpowering giants. We survive by outlasting them. The executor raised a limb, signaling for execution. Energy weapons leveled at the soldier's chest, humming louder as they charged. In that instant, a new alert screamed across the chamber. A live transmission forced its way onto every screen. Earth. Not the burning world the Dominion remembered, but something harder, sharper. Underground cities carved into bedrock. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. Faces of civilians turned soldiers, their eyes hollow yet resolute. A woman spoke, her voice carrying through static and fire. This is a declaration, she said. We will not kneel again. The Council recoiled. Fear rippled through them, raw and unfamiliar. The Dominion thrived on certainty, on the belief that resistance was temporary. Humanity had turned resistance into identity. Worlds once silent now pulsed with rebellion, inspired by the idea that the giants could bleed, that survival itself could become defiance. End it, the executor roared. Kill him! The weapons fired. Light engulfed the soldier, a blinding surge that swallowed his frame. For a heartbeat, the Council believed it was over. Then the light bent, curving around him as a translucent field shimmered into existence. The blast dissipated, leaving him standing, swaying but alive. Shock froze the chamber. Several council members stepped back instinctively, ancient instincts screaming danger. Records and predictions collapsed in real time, unable to process a species that refused to behave as expected, that chose sacrifice over submission without hesitation. The soldier exhaled slowly. Prototype shielding, he said. Unsafe, unstable, effective enough. You implanted it into yourself, the executor whispered, horror creeping into its voice. Someone had to test it, the soldier replied. I was already expendable. The field flickered, dimming with every second. He could feel his heart straining, his body nearing its limit. Time was running out, but that was acceptable. It always had been. He thought briefly of Earth, of quiet skies and voices he would never hear again, and felt no regret. "You still don't understand," he said, lifting his head. "I'm not here to defeat you." The executor advanced, rage overcoming caution. "Then why come at all?" The soldier met its gaze, eyes burning with quiet conviction. "So you'd know," he said, "that when humanity finally arrives, this won't be a war." The shielding collapsed. He fell forward, guards scrambling as the executor recoiled. "It will be an ending," the soldier whispered, his voice steady despite the pain, carrying certainty, finality, and the quiet promise of consequences yet unseen. Outside the chamber, the distant thunder of battle rolled closer, and for the first time in its long history, the Dominion felt the weight of inevitability. History shifted, and the galaxy would be unchanged again. The chamber no longer felt vast. It felt small, compressed by the weight of consequences finally arriving. The Supreme Executor stood frozen as reports confirmed what instinct already knew. Dominion fleets were failing everywhere at once. Not through annihilation, but through collapse. Command nodes went dark. Logistics fractured, and once loyal subject worlds severed their chains the moment weakness appeared. The old human soldier lay on the floor, breathing shallowly. Yet his presence still dominated the room. He had not come to witness victory. He had come to make it unavoidable. Medical drones hovered uncertainly near him, unsure whether to preserve or dispose. A young Dominion tactician stepped forward, its voice trembling despite years of conditioning. "What do you want?" it asked. "Territory, tribute? Our surrender?" The soldier opened his eyes slowly. "We want you to stop," he said. "That's all we ever wanted." The executor recoiled as if struck. "You expect mercy after what you've done?" It spat. "After the damage you've inflicted?" He forced himself upright, leaning on one elbow. Pain lanced through his chest, but he welcomed it. "You confuse damage with consequence," he replied. "You taught us that lesson." Across the screens, human fleets halted their advance. Weapons powered down. Rescue ships diverted toward liberated prison worlds instead of enemy capitals. The Dominion watched, unable to comprehend restraint when dominance lay within reach. "End them!" a warlord shouted desperately. "Before they finish us." The executor hesitated. That hesitation changed everything. "You ruled through fear," the soldier said, his voice growing firmer as resolve replaced weakness. "So you never learned what courage looks like. Courage is stopping when you could keep going." The chamber shook as distant explosions rippled through space, not from human weapons, but from Dominion reactors pushed beyond limits by sudden isolation. The Empire had been built to command everything. It could not survive losing control. The executor lowered its gaze. "And if we refuse?" The soldier met its eyes. "Then we finish what you started," he said. "Not out of hatred. Out of necessity." Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. At last, the executor signaled the chamber to stand down. Weapons lowered. Communications opened across the Dominion, broadcasting a single order no one had ever imagined hearing. "Cease all aggression." The words echoed like a funeral bell. In the aftermath, the soldier was transferred to a neutral medical station. Human medics worked alongside former enemies, their hands steady, their faces unreadable. A young human officer remained at his bedside, studying the man who had carried humanity's grief into the heart of an empire. "They'll remember you," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Good," he replied. "Just make sure they remember why we stopped." Outside the viewport, human ships withdrew in disciplined silence, leaving behind broken chains instead of burned worlds. Freed species watched in disbelief as their former conquerors stood down, not destroyed but diminished. Before sleep claimed him, the soldier recorded one final message. It was not a threat nor a celebration. It was a reminder. "We are not born warriors," he said. "We are made when protecting others becomes the only choice left." The message spread across the stars, carried by rumor and memory. Humanity became known not as conquerors, but as the species that ended an empire and walked away. As the soldier closed his eyes, alarms across the Dominion finally fell silent. The galaxy exhaled, uncertain of what came next, but aware that something fundamental had changed. This was not the end of humanity's story. It was the moment the universe learned that survival, once earned, could become responsibility, and that the quietest warning could reshape eternity. The officer remained as machines hummed, watching the old soldier breathe. Each rise of his chest, a testament to endurance rather than strength. She understood now that victory was never about winning battles, but choosing what kind of future survived them. Beyond the station, diplomats whispered, alliances shifted, and long silent worlds began to speak without fear. The Dominion still existed, wounded and humbled, forced to confront a universe no longer willing to obey. The soldier stirred once more, eyes opening briefly. "This peace," he murmured, "will be tested." She nodded. "We'll be ready." He smiled at that. A smile born not of confidence but trust. Trust that humanity had learned the cost of restraint and the value of standing firm without becoming cruel. When his eyes finally closed again, it was not surrender. It was rest earned at the edge of extinction. Far beyond the station, unknown civilizations watched the aftermath and recalculated their beliefs. Some felt fear. Others felt hope. All understood one truth. Humanity had drawn a line the galaxy could not ignore. And somewhere in the quiet between stars, the future waited, shaped by a warning that had become a promise.